Hi, everyone. So what does it actually mean to raise your vibration, and why would you want to do that? So I've actually completely named my business called Raising the Vibes because I think it's so important, because it affects our physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual health. Now, how does it do that? Let's think about it. Everything in this world, anything that we can touch and see, and everything that we can't see is all vibration and frequency if it's broken down, really. The amazing thing that I think about in vibration and frequency is that everything that has a vibration or a frequency has a sound and a color. Which is quite interesting, which kind of like talks about how our aura is made up. But that's another subject for another day. Think about it. We only see 1% of everything with our naked eye, right? Some people say from 1 to 5% is what we see. Anything that is tangible in this world is really only 1 to 5% of what we call reality. And this is why we have to rely on our extrasensory perceptions, because what we're doing with those is we are trying to perceive everything else that we cannot see, okay? Which is a big chunk of what this world is really about. But if we start looking at for ourselves in raising our vibrational frequency, we really need to look at, how do we raise our vibrational frequency, not only physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Now, I've challenged myself to help you with this by coming up with, I don't know, maybe a day for a year to raise your vibrational frequency. On a personal level, I'm looking to raise our frequency not only physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually. Now, the number one definition for, I Googled vibration frequency in physics, is the number of waves past a given point in a unit of time. I always like to put that in, or a number of cycles of vibrations undergone, during 1 unit of time in a periodic motion. So we start to think that anything that vibrates at a higher frequency would have more of these cycles, and everything that vibrates at a lower frequency has less cycles or is more dense. And I'd like to think about this as in higher and lower frequencies rather than good and bad, because we need to move through everything in order to really experience and release those frequencies within each of our bodies, or each of our systems, I should say. So, for example, if we go through a trauma, it is important to work through the trauma to release the frequencies that we are feeling on a physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual level. Because what happens when we suppress it, that frequency is still there, that density is still there. Right. So it's important to work through everything. And this is why sometimes I call it bubblegum spirituality, where a lot of us jump into the spiritual world and we think, no, we need to vibrate high all the time. Yes, that is the case, where we're trying to vibrate the highest possible way that we can, but we cannot do that by suppressing the lower vibrational frequencies. And this is why you'll see in some of my teachings, I talk about, if you're going to feel an emotion, say, for example, like anger, feel it 100%, right? Allow it. If we're going to feel grief, allow that grief to surface, allow to move it through however it moves through, as long as you're not hurting anybody else or yourself. Express it, even if you have to go for a run, if you have to cry, if you have to scream, whatever it is, feel it 100%. Because what happens is when we feel it 100%, we're actually letting it go. We're emptying that. And what's left in our systems is a healed vibrational frequency of that trauma. That signature is there, but it's a healed signature. Right. So that helps us, for those that are light workers and do kind of like healing and offer, services to others, that helps to attract those that have gone through the same trauma, but you've worked through it, you've healed that, right? So you're able to help them. So the frequency of emotions, I mean, there's a whole kind of like frequency wheel dedicated to this. It talks about the frequency of those emotions and how we move through them. Now, there are various techniques to raise the vibration of those emotions, and I'll go through over the next few weeks, giving you tips and methods to really work through these emotions. Because what happens is, the more we work through our shit, the less anchors there are in the body, the less energy sits there on the body, the mind, you know, the emotions, the more we're able to vibrate at a higher frequency. Now, the lower frequencies like emotions, shame, guilt, grief, you know, they hold us down, but we need to move through them. Kind of like, you know, I always talk about, you know, yes, sometimes things can be sunshine and rainbows, but before the sunshine and rainbows comes out, we need to weather the storm. And the best way to weather the storm is to move through it, okay? Not around it, not run away, not run behind. It's actually kind of like move through it in order to get through the other side. And that's when, after we've gone through this, and some of us call this shadow work, that's where the biggest growth is, right? Is when we're moving through those uncomfortable situations. And that's where the sunshine and rainbows comes through. That is because we've moved through it, we've released it, right? And we know we've gone through it, we've released every aspect of it, when we can talk about those situations and there's no emotional attachment to it. But that's for another day as well. So Abraham Hicks has created this amazing chart of emotion, of our emotions and our thoughts, and we're all linked. There's nothing that is separate from one another, right? Our mind, our emotions, our physicality, we're all linked. We feel it all. We sense it all. We see it all. Now, the reason you want to raise your vibrational frequency, the reason you want to work through all of this is, one, so that you're not anchored to the past and you can move forward into the future. But what happens is that when we vibrate at a certain frequency, we call things towards us of that frequency, which is why gratitude journals, like taking note and taking time to be grateful, is one of the frequencies on the higher spectrum of the scale. We call towards us more things to be grateful for. When we're vibrating at joy and happiness, we call towards us more things to be happy and joyful about. Yes, when we're angry, like if we start off our day kind of like something goes wrong, sometimes that sets the tone for the rest of the day. But that's if we allow it. So it's really moving through that somehow. And I can give you an example of this. So this last birthday of mine, I was super excited. I was like, I'm going to have a day of self-care. That's what I'm going to do for my birthday. So I had booked a hairdressing appointment with one of the salons that I used to go to here in Edinburgh. And I was super excited about it because I had booked, you know, a hair salon, and then I was going to go do a sports massage straight after that because my back was hurting me. And I thought, I'll just have a day. The girls are in school, like really, really relaxed. And at 9:30, I got a call saying that my hairdresser was ill and she was not able to do my hair. And I was just like, man, I was really looking forward to this today. And I thought, you know what, perhaps it's not meant to be. But I still want to get my hair done. So what I did was, like when you move to any other new country, having recently moved to Edinburgh, Scotland, I Googled, you know, top 10 hairdressers in Edinburgh. And there was a few that came up. And I thought, okay, I'm going to call this other one that's just kind of like in the braids. And, you know, well, I called the chain of the one I was going to, and they had no spaces. So I was like, nope, I'm not giving up. This is not going to destroy my, like, you know, ruin my plans for the day. And I found another one that's all within the top kind of like 5 hairdressers here. And I called them up, and lo and behold, they were able to fit me in for a 3-hour appointment. Yes, it does take that long. For a 3-hour appointment to do kind of like highlights and a cut and all the rest of that. at exactly the same time of my original appointment, which meant that I had enough time to then still make it to my massage. So, surrendering that, but not giving up, playing into action, saying, nope, this is going to shift my day. It really kind of like helped me to work through, those emotions of disappointment but not giving up, but knowing that there's a reason for everything. And I had the best appointment ever. The lady that did my hair, she had done her Reiki level 1 and Reiki level 2, and we had this amazing conversation. And I said, well, it's really amazing that you managed to fit me in today. And she said, you know what, the lady that appointment you took, she called in 5 minutes before you did and canceled her appointment because she wasn't able to make it. So it's amazing how things kind of like fall into place when we allow ourselves to move through the emotions, not get stuck in the emotions, to surrender, but yet action into what we're wanting to do. So that changed my vibrational frequency throughout the day. I did feel the disappointment at the beginning. I did move through those emotions, but I also know that if we raise our frequency and surrender, it allows us to move through what we need to move through and puts us back into the flow, because sometimes these hiccups or these obstacles are placed to change our direction. So it's really kind of like, it's how we receive the information, how we work through the information that raises our frequency or drops our frequency. And sometimes we do need to kind of like drop our frequency for whatever reason. So for example, take the vibrational frequency of anger. If we can direct anger in a way that is healthy and conducive to us, that's an amazing way of really managing or working through that emotion, right? Because if we don't, work through our anger, we shove it deep inside. Not only does it start to affect us, but it starts to kind of like fester underneath, and anger becomes resentment and all sorts of other things as well. So it's important to work through this and remember that our thoughts control our emotions, our body and everything. So where thought goes, energy flows. So we need to create, note the vibrational frequencies of our thoughts, because if the quality of your thoughts that you're saying to yourself, you wouldn't say to your best friend, then we need to start really contemplating, the quality of our thoughts, because our thoughts create our environment, and our thoughts have that vibrational frequency because our thoughts activate our emotions and we act on our emotions, and therefore creating our reality, right? And this is why it's important to raise the frequency on all levels. So physically, in what we eat, the environments we put ourselves in, mentally, in what we consume mentally, the types of conversations we're having, which, ends up helping us kind of like emotionally as well. Remember that every action has a reaction. We really need to start becoming focused on the vibration that we hold, and what it is that we're doing. So I'm going to be working through ways of, raising our vibrational frequency, raising our vibes, as it were. And I'm going to challenge myself to come up with enough ways to work through and raise your frequency that you could work through one a year or more. So, watch this space. I hope that these are really, really helpful for you. And yeah, let's raise the frequency, because change starts with us. If we want to change our outside world, we have to change our internal world as well. And the more we raise our frequency, the more we raise the frequency of the consciousness. And that's why I'm here, to help bring awareness to who you are and to help raise the vibes of anyone I come into contact with. So have an amazing day. I hope some of this was helpful, and I'll see you all very soon.